You told me more than once to show you my intention. My brain gets blocked at times, but now somehow I'll give you my attention. You've got to know that I ain't a person who understands all the clockwork of our romance. You make me feel so alive, always there in my mind. But I just don't know if I'll dance with the lights on. If you're gonna be moving on solo, wait a second, cause they're playing the best song. I'll be there if you reach out to me. Reach out to me. Reach out to me. A rolling stone tonight, never to be settled. Although I know I can't deny your eyes, I've got this inner battle. I don't know how to act. I ain't a person who understands the commitment of a romance, but somehow I need you close. I'll go wherever you go. But I just don't know if I'll dance with the lights on. If you're gonna be moving on solo, wait a second, cause they're playing the best song. I'll be there if you reach out to me. Reach out to me.
Hi. Can you hear me? Hello? Hi, I'm the Director of Operations here at the Damn Film Festival, and I'd like to welcome you to the Q&A for Drama B, Youth Challenges. And I believe we have a few speakers joining, but I don't see anybody yet. Oh, I think we're coming in now.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay, cool.
Hello, how are we doing today?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
You're a bit bitty though.
Good.
For me as well. Yeah, a little bit laggy.
Oh, you're good.
You are too, for some reason. You're fine.
I think it's just Ken.
Yeah.
It's probably just me. So we'll try to work the best we can. So if you guys can hear me, I want to.
Yeah.
Hearing me?
You're kind of frozen.
Yeah, same for me.
Yeah.
It's just a shader.
All right, Jack, you and I.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Think so. Yeah, you're good now.
Yes. Okay. All right, let's try it again. Let's have you start off by introducing the name of your film and what role you had in that film. I'll start with Jack. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
My name's Jack Curtis, and I wrote and directed a film called Growing Pains.
And my name is Shada Frost, and I wrote and directed a film called Fangirl.
All right. So I apologize, guys. I think I'm having some internet issues on my end. So we'll do the best we can to get through this. So let's see. I'm not seeing any questions yet. So what we'll do is I have a question. So I really enjoyed this particular program. I felt it was one of the stronger programs we had. And I particularly like both of your films. So my question to you is know about the can you talk still hear me?
I got nothing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, same. Sorry.
Do you want to maybe type it? Would that be? Oh, I mean, he's frozen.
Take two.
We're back.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Sorry about that. If I could get, I think we're.
Yeah, I'm still not.
Yeah, same. Sorry, Ken.
Yeah.
You're very.
It's okay. Would it be weird if we just kind of went and self-directed and like I could ask Jack a question, he'd ask a question?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, first off, maybe just tell me a little bit about your film because I haven't had a chance. I haven't had a chance to watch any of them yet. So
yeah, I started watching a few films maybe an hour before. I thought, oh, I better and sadly, Shady, yours wasn't one of them that I've seen.
That's all right. Don't worry.
So yeah, I've made a note of it. So yours is the Fangirl one, right?
And you're Growing Pains, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Fantastic. So tell me just a little bit about it. And then I think Keith was asking about inspiration. So if you want to segue into that.
Well, the inspiration for my film is it's very loosely based on a true story, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And it deals with the themes of medical cannabis, basically, and bullying. And the theme of medical cannabis was something that was quite close to my heart because I know people personally who have been treated, have been successfully treated and use it. But I know it's different over there. You've got lots of like legal states now. We haven't got that luxury over here, so it's still very much illegal. And so it's basically about a young girl who grows cannabis for her chronically ill father. But school bullies kind of find out at school and make her life miserable in an attempt to get some weed off her. And it doesn't end too great. But sadly, it's a reflection of the current state of vulnerability in the UK right now. And it's not uncommon, that scenario.
That's really interesting. I'm excited to watch it. And just to clarify, you're in the UK, right? So culturally, it's a very different. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lee. Hi.
Yes, I was watching. I jumped in for Ken. Ken's connection is definitely not working. So sorry about that. Thanks for self-directing yourself. Appreciate that.
We just thought we'd try for a minute. Why not?
Yeah, we still have 35 minutes, so we're good. And I missed part of what you said, but you're talking about your films individually, right? Were you both able to cover briefly what your films were about?
Shada hasn't been yet, so it was just me.
Okay. Yeah, just briefly. So mine follows the life in a day of a 14-year-old girl. And she's totally obsessed with this like pop singer icon. And she's kind of devising different ways that she could meet him. And she also deals with a lot of like online bullying and in real life bullying. And she creates this kind of other world for her to escape into where she is. I mean, it's debatable whether or not this is a real audience she's speaking to or if it's like a mockumentary or whatever it is that she's doing. But it's a very alter ego kind of digital world. And it's an exploration of like what kids that are in the preteen, early teen, what they're going through today and how that teen experience has evolved from a little while ago and like what our digital and online presence and obsession with fame, what's that doing to youth? So that's kind of what it's about.
All right, great. I'll try to come with some questions here. I actually programmed horror, sci-fi, and animation. Cool. And Neil Lanier programmed all the drama. I've seen some of the dramas, but not every single one of them because I trust my team. But I'm going to take a look at my list here real quick. Let's see. We're on drama B. I could ask a generic question to both of you to get started here. Well, one, is this your first short? Or have you done several shorts in the past? For both of you, let's start with that. First short, or is this, have you done a number of shorts already?
Jack, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I've done loads of shorts. This is definitely not my first. However, it's the first, I would say it was the first like proper short insofar as like we got funding from the British Film Institute, the BFI. Everything else I've done has kind of like been beg, borrow and steal jobs. Whereas this one was more, more proper.
Okay. Proper budget, proper crew, permits.
That's right. Yeah. Oh god, yeah. All of that
Insurance.
stuff.
Insurance, craft service.
Yeah. So all the money was gone before we even began. Of course.
That's typical. I'm in the same kind of boat where I did a bunch of beg, borrow, steals. I went to grad school for it, so like we did a whole bunch of stuff, waltzed to students, and so this is, I don't know, maybe like my second or third, I'd say proper like cohesive piece that I'm like happy. There's also a lot of like little things that you're like, I'm not happy to put that into any sort of ether. So this is one of, I say the second or third that I'm like, okay, good. I'm comfortable. I like it. I feel really good about where it ended. So yeah.
With your experience on the film festival circuit, because I assume those films have played other festivals around the world, have you adjusted your filmmaking style, or have you gained knowledge that helped you improve your filmmaking skills? And we'll start with Jack again.
So actually, the Damn Short Film Festival, this is the first film festival that's showing the film actually.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. So,
World premiere.
Yeah, literally.
Awesome.
Yeah, literally. So, yeah, we finished at the beginning of 2020. That's where we wrapped, and then we had a finished film by April, but the world had just gone mad by then. So we kind of like sat on it for a bit, thinking, well, our festival's going to go ahead, are they not? And then, we just started submitting because hoping that things would be back to some sort of normal, but they are not. So here we are.
How about your previous with your experience with the previous films you did, right? That maybe were a little bit more
right. Okay. Yes. Yeah, this one, we've actually had a budget this time to submit to film festivals, which, again, from before was just kind of beg, borrow, and steal. So a lot of smaller festivals. But yeah, I've had some good experiences with festivals in the past. We opened a few years ago the London Short Film Festival with a short that we made, which was an experimental short, which opened the London Short Film Festival, so that was cool. But there's only been like little bits for me, really, when it comes to festivals. So I'm hoping that this one will get a bit more mileage out of this one.
Well, we're going to spoil you. Even though we're online this year and it's virtual, people usually have pretty good experience here for the first time.
Yeah, great.
Once we work out the whole technical issues this year. I'm sorry, how do you say your name? Shada?
Shada. Yeah,
Shada.
Just the way it's spelled. The way you think it's said, it's that way.
Okay.
Similarly, I would say I don't think necessarily certain festivals have changed the way I've made films, but rather I think I'm a little bit more discerning in where I submit as far as like what my taste is and what not like my taste in festival, but rather like my taste in like what I'm making and what would be a good fit for it. I think I look for that a little bit more, whereas I think a little bit earlier, I was a little bit more wide casting in the net, and it just from a budgetary point, it just like didn't make sense, And so now I feel like I try to look for places that I feel like would be a good fit, just as much as they're looking for at my short or my film being like, oh, that would work for us. So I try to be kind of discerning in what y'all are looking for as well. But rather, it's not like you know what I mean? It's not like festivals are like, oh, I really want to make that type of film so I could get in there. It's more like, I'm going to make what I really want to make. Right. And then hopefully I'm like getting better through each iteration, if that makes sense. Each time you direct, you're a little bit better. At least that's the hope.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's a good point about when filmmakers start out, they tend to be kind of scattershot. I went through that myself also. But you have to figure out where you're going to stick, like where you're a good fit, where your personality matches the festival. And it's always clear when you haven't been to the festival yet. And it's not always clear until you submit. But after you do that for a while, since you guys have done multiple films, you start to get a feel for, oh, my film fits well at that festival with that crowd. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I've personally found also that films will play very different at different locations. So they might find it really funny in one location, and another location, the audience is just dead. So you kind of keep that in mind. It's like, it's just crickets. So it's like, well, these people get it. And these people, maybe they don't quite understand, maybe culturally or whatever it happens to be, who knows, but yeah.
Yeah, we've had a company called Festival Formula who's guide us basically, because out of the whole filmmaking process, festivals is probably, I mean, I've been to a bunch over the years, but it's probably what I know least about, and it's probably the most daunting for me. So it was actually nice to get some advice. And yeah, what you've just said basically sums it up. So they were super knowledgeable of all festivals, and so they were like, right, this will be a great fit here, I think it'll be good there. And I'm like, yeah, but what about this, you know? And they're like, nah, you like, trust me, just use the money to buy beer is what they advise.
Any extra money.
I think with like newer filmmakers, that happens a lot, where like the thing that they know least about is probably the festival route and the distribution as a whole. It's like this like crazy thing that we're like, oh, business, like we want, you know what I mean? Like you want to make the thing, and then you're more concerned, and it takes everything out of you to just make the thing. And then once it's done, you're sitting there going, oh my God, well, how do I have to like rebirth it, like get it out into the world for real now that it's been created. And it's a really, I wouldn't say daunting, but a little bit sometimes, where you're just sitting there going, my God, I just went through all that, and now I feel like I have to redo it all over again because I'm just not done. And I think it's an interesting thing, and you want to look for places that like support new filmmakers as well, you know, support people that are in this like career part of their lives.
Yeah, and some festivals are more picky about world premieres or, you know, local premieres or what have you, or what actors are in it.
Definitely.
So that's always a consideration. Obviously, we're not really concerned about that. We just want to find some good films, and we don't care how long the filmmaker's been around. But to your point, yeah, that's something I think a lot of people don't realize in the audience is it's very difficult to make a film to start with, and it can be very expensive. I mean, it's a little bit cheaper these days, but still, it can be very expensive. And then you have all the expense and time of sending your film out, getting rejected, and then even if you do get accepted, figuring out how to get to the film festival, all the travel expenses, and obviously not all the festivals are able to offer per diems or what have you. So, yeah, it's definitely a passion project in terms of business, and it's not obvious, you know, how you might make money with it too. So, people put their heart and soul in it. So, in terms of another question. How much of your films came from some personal place, like personal experience, somebody you knew, something like that? You want to discuss that? Start with Jack again.
Yeah, sure. Briefly, as we were having the technical difficulties at the beginning, Shada and I were kind of discussing this. But yeah, so mine is essentially, it follows a young girl who grows cannabis for her chronically ill father. And that came from a story that touched me, actually. So I heard about a guy who was too ill to take care of his crop, and it was his daughter that was doing it, and nobody knew. So it stuck with me for a while, and I knew there was something there, and then I ended up developing it. And it turned into Growing Pains, but that inspiration came from a guy that I know called Jeff Ditchfield, who has basically spent most of his adult life breaking the law, but helping sick people he's basically a master grower and he helps people to grow. He kind of runs like an underground charity. He's a cool guy. So I was developing that because it's a topic that I'm very passionate about anyway. And I have plans to develop a feature film out of the guy Jeff's story, who I just told you about, because he's got an amazing story. So deals with the same subject matter and themes.
All right. So start with a real story, yeah. And Shada?
I wouldn't say mine's necessarily like in any way autobiographic. Like she's obsessed with some crazy things. Like she's a little dark, and she's a little it's hard to root for her. And I think that's kind of where I took my inspiration from and my interest from, is I have a real fascination with protagonists that are really difficult to get behind. And I think, I mean, if and when you watch it, it's there's a point at which I've led you down a journey to say this is kind of an unlikable character. Like it's much easier to laugh at her than with her. In fact, no one's laughing with her. And so I really love an unlikable character where you can switch the script and kind of get around and say, okay, actually, I see where you're coming from. So that was really what I wanted to explore. That's where I kind of found her and based her in. But yeah, I mean, a little bit, I suppose. There's always like, it's a film about a female teen maturation. That's like the story it is. So obviously I was that at one point in my life there. So there's a little bit borrowed, I'm sure. But of course, when you're looking back on your own life, you're just sitting there going, oh, I was never that bad, but like, maybe I was, I don't know.
Well, hard to see yourself from a distance. Yeah. That brings up an interesting question about characters and, you know, having a character that's empathetic or sympathetic. Can you speak to the importance of, even if the character is difficult, why it's important for the audience to be able to relate to them in terms of the success of the short film? Jack?
In regards to having empathy towards the character, is that what sorry, what was the question?
Well, yeah, developing a character where you can feel empathy or sympathy for. How important is that as a filmmaker to make sure that your character is able to generate those feelings from the audience?
Yeah, well, for Growing Pains, I feel that was a key element to it, because your heart goes out. I haven't succeeded in my job unless your heart's going out for this character just because of the situation that she's in. I think, Shada, what you said is interesting about, you said your central character's not likable by design.
Not really. I
cool.
mean, for a while, I'd say. I leave it to you to figure that out, but there is a switch in there where all of a sudden, instead of like not laughing, you're not laughing, but you're kind of judging her and looking at her, all of a sudden you're kind of behind her and with her.
Oh, cool. Well,
and I hope I leave it to you to find where that moment is. I know where I think it is, and I have had other people tell me it's in certain places. Usually you'll find it.
Well, I look forward to watching that then, because you know, it's a common thing that you hear all the time. it's like, central character has to be likable, I don't necessarily think they do, personally. I think
I'd say not necessarily, but we found just from programming and all the films we watch that it helps to be able to at least understand them.
Relatable is different than likable.
Yes.
Yeah, very true. True.
You're absolutely right. Relatable or understandable, where at least even if they're totally unsavory, at least somehow you get why they're doing what they're doing, and at least understand that they're going through that struggle, I think. And that's something that
she's not unsavory. She's just a
well, I'm not talking about I'm not talking about your character in particular, but in general.
Just for the record.
Yeah. No, I mean, some of your characters are a little bit difficult, like you said. And obviously,
in fact, I want to work with an unsavory character. They're my favorite kind of character.
There's plenty of films out there like that, and we get a number of them in the film festival. But I think one area that people maybe struggle with as filmmakers is making sure that at some point the character becomes relatable. So, I mean, we get a number of films that are very high production value. They spend a ton of money. They may maybe even have recognizable actors, semi-famous or famous actors, and they fail to let us know why we should care about these characters or try to understand them or understand what they're doing. So that's why I ask. From our end, it feels very important to be able to generate that. And it's interesting to hear that if your characters are a little bit difficult or not unsavory, but that
I totally agree.
That you have to achieve that. You want to speak about casting?
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Actually, it was a casting question as well. So I was wondering with Jack, did you? Because I worked with a 14-year-old, like she was actually 14 at the time of shooting. Did you also work with you said she's a girl, right? Was she also a minor? 13. And how was that? How was your experience with that? Yeah.
So,
sorry, Lee, I took it from you.
No, that's a good question. Yeah.
No, it's a very good question, and one that I'm very lucky insofar as I was involved growing up myself in an acting group near locally, which has ties or had ties to the television and film industry, and it was funded at the time. It still exists as it works as a charity, developing young talent basically. And I'm still very close with this group, and they were my first port of call when looking for an actor. But when I wrote it, I had a certain idea in my mind, like a mold that I was trying to fit, and I never quite found anybody. So I cast the net a little bit further afield, and I still didn't quite find any. And then maybe it was like the third or fourth set of auditions, and it just wasn't clicking, and I didn't know why. Anyway, started reviewing some footage because I filmed them, and there was one girl that just had something. I couldn't quite put my finger on it on the original auditions with this original group that I told you about. And so I called the director of the group and I was like, "Oh, can I see this girl again?" She had a few really annoying habits, and I just thought if I could just work with her and get over those little annoying habits, then maybe there's something there. And she was amazing. Like, she was so good. And eventually, it was obvious that she was the girl that I was going to use. And it wasn't until the first day of filming, actually, I asked her, I said, "So have you been in anything before, Lola?" I hadn't actually ascertained this. And she said no. And I was like, "Wow, this is the first thing you've done." But yeah, she was awesome, like so good.
Well, that leads to a question about working with minors, I guess. The old saying goes, never work with children or animals, right? Yeah. How was your experience?
I've done both.
Well, you could talk about both animals and children. What special challenges do you have as a director or filmmaker working with, underage, not underage, but minors, minors, like I should say, and or animals? You want to start, Shada?
Sure. So with Fangirl, Laurel she was 14 at the time of shooting, and the character was 14. And I really felt like it was important to have someone that actual age, not only for like the look of the piece, but also because I felt like emotionally they could kind of channel something. And I had a very similar story to Jack, where like I think I saw 80 girls, and like she was the second one in. And it was her look that I actually saw this girl as like a Middle Eastern or Indian American. I don't know why when I wrote it, that's what I saw. And Laurel
I was similar. For some reason, I had a mixed race girl in my mind.
It was there, right?
But it doesn't really go for a while, does it? And eventually,
it didn't matter, because in the end, it was like
ultimately.
I saw her audition, and it wasn't in the moment, but I mean, it was kind of, because I was like literally it was like, oh my God, she's so good. Can I find someone with the look that I'm looking for? And I couldn't, but two, it was just undeniable. Like this was supposed to be her from the get-go. And I think that kind of coming in and knowing what she had to offer just from the audition alone, I was really confident and comfortable with her. And I mean, aside from like they're not annoying. The laws are there for a reason. Like you can only work kids for a certain amount of time. They need breaks and they do school and all that. So aside from that would like kind of put a pressure on production in general. I loved it. I absolutely loved working with her. She's not the first minor I've worked with, but like she's certainly, frankly, my favorite. There's just an intuitiveness that I find with children that she's not a kid, but like teens, kids, whatever. That like she just latched in, and we spoke later about it, because I think I've gotten this question of like how like the character was she, and like for me I was like not at all. This girl is so different. She's a 180. And later she kind of talked to me. She was like, maybe you didn't see it at the time, but like I identified with this character like in a deep down kind of way, in a way that like I don't show that to most people. And I was like, well, you tapped into something very amazing and powerful, and like something that I could never do, certainly. So it was just kind of up to me to set her up and then get out of her way, which it's crazy because usually you find that with adults. So I was super, super blessed to have found her.
All right. Jack, want to talk about your experience with children and or animals?
Yeah, sure. I haven't got many experiences with animals other than a chicken once.
That's something.
So, back to the children. Yeah, same challenges as Shada. So you could only. Oh, so that was the thing. So we originally scheduled our shoot for 3 days, and then you start to learn about, well, they can only be on set for X amount of time, and we're like, shit. Okay, well, it's going to have to be 4 days then, because
like 3 days turned to 5.
Yeah, literally, yeah. It's exactly the same. We was 5 days in the end, and we only really had the budget for 3, so we had to try and find some extra money elsewhere. So yeah, that's I blame the children for that. That's it. That's it really. I guess because the central character, I think, other than one scene, possibly 2, she's in every single scene. So we actually had quite short days, really, which kind of felt like you were just pissing money down the drain. But that wasn't much we could do, really. So that was it, really. That's the one consideration that you don't kind of think about until it's presented in front of you. Then you have to work around that, or not really work around it, just get more money, basically, so you can actually
just a longer schedule.
Basically,
yeah. So, Shada, what animals have you worked with?
I've worked with a dog and a ferret.
A ferret, all right.
Yeah, the ferret doesn't do. I mean, like it was a show ferret. It didn't really do anything. It just like didn't bite you, so that was great. And there was a lot of like holding and like petting. That was the ferret. The dog, as much as they're highly trainable, to be completely honest, it like did not do what it needed to do. So I love animals. I have a dog myself. They're amazing. I do not love putting them in anything because they're just difficult. Like as trained as they are also going to just do the thing that they want to do, you know.
Oh yeah, especially dogs. They're just happy to be there, happy to meet
Can't be
everyone.
reasoned with.
No, not at all. Don't know about the ferret. Ferret probably had an ego. I don't know.
You know, that ferret, he was like happy as a clam sitting in his little
Well,
cage thing that PR
that's
department
good.
built for him. So like, good for
That's-
him.
Let's see. So where are you both located? Jack?
I'm in Nottingham in England.
All right. And Shada?
I'm in LA.
LA. Maybe talk about your location. I mean, LA, of course, is the heart of filmmaking. At least it has been for a long time in the
Right
US.
now, it's a little hard.
I don't know. Well, actually, that's an interesting question. Now, did you shoot your films during the pandemic or before?
Mine was
Jackie-
before.
Yeah. Before.
Okay, before. Okay, so you didn't have to deal with the end of the world scenario there. It just kind of delayed everything. But maybe speak to the fact you're, in LA, which is kind of the heart of filmmaking for the US, and then Jack in England, where filmmaking is a bit different. You know, you might have the film board and all that. Like, what advantages or disadvantages do you think you have making a film in either LA or where you are in England? You want to start with that, Jack?
Yeah, sure. So actually, we were very lucky because the funding pot that we tapped into to get the film made was actually in support of filmmakers outside of London.
Oh, okay.
In an attempt by the BFI to diversify a little bit, because essentially what happened a few years prior is the BFI were they came under a lot of criticism by filmmakers, specifically in the north of England. Nottingham's kind of in the middle, but it's considered north because it's north of London. And yeah, they came under a lot of criticism because it was just London filmmakers getting all the opportunities. And so credit to the BFI, a few years later, they started a scheme which was specifically to support filmmakers outside of London. So in that respect, it was an advantage for us because it allowed us to tap into that.
Great. And Shada?
I would say it's a double-edged sword, to be totally honest. I think that LA has, like, the fact that I was able to work with the crew and to get access to the cast and the team that was assembled, they're just an amazing, talented pool of people that, like, you know, they say you surround yourself with people that are better than you and they lift you up. I mean, I don't know how that goes, but like, if that's what I felt like with that team. They were just so wonderful, so talented, so creative. And I feel like I found them here because of the network that I'm in, and because of like the work that I do, and like, you know, the people that I meet and come in contact with. Not to say that that doesn't exist everywhere else. I'm from Atlanta. Atlanta has a good filmmaking bed as well. I will say that the knife edge of the other part of the sword is that there's very fierce competition here because everyone's doing it. Feels like, let's say, it feels like everyone's doing it. And everyone's working on a script, everyone's working on their film. And so kind of vying for that talent is difficult unless you're like, you know, homies, unless you're like really close to someone and you sit there and say, hey, do me a solid, or like, hey, like maybe I can't pay you your regular rate, but like, you know, I love you, you love me, we'll do a tradesy or something like that. So at this point, it's still very much like scrounge what you can, where you can. But I will say that there's also like the city itself has more resources. So like our locations, it's just not weird to have filming anywhere and everywhere,
Right.
so long as you're permitted, obviously, and to find any look that you want. And as far as like different houses, different like prop houses and art deck and all that stuff, like it was, I think, easier to access in that way, but certainly not impossible anywhere else, you know.
But do you find that there's some additional complexity though, because there are so many film crews, you know, pulling permits, getting to shoot a particular location? I guess that's a trade-off would be. And then you said the competition,
so. The competition is, it's fierce. You know, you have to book your things in well in advance, even a 2-day shoot, a 4-day shoot, or whatever it is, simply because, I mean, even now, even during the pandemic, people are busy, you know, even like, so you don't want to end up with, you want to end up with like the people that you trust and that you find talented and that can see your vision. And so kind of getting those people is, it can be difficult simply because if they're talented, they're working,
Right. That's good
which
to
is
hear.
good for them. You want
Yeah,
them to
no,
be.
it's good to hear it's getting busy again. And Jack,
Yeah, pandemic's weird, but
yeah,
everything's
it's
open,
weird.
so.
Yeah. And Jack, Nottingham, is there much of a film community in your area, or did you have to bring in talent from other areas of England?
No, it's pretty good here. I mean, obviously, it's nothing like LA, but there's a small, very active community, and we all help each other. So it's good here. Yeah, not so much now. We're in a lockdown here with no end date.
Yeah. Aside from that, is it? Do you have the complexity yet in your area in terms of permitting and booking locations and all that, or is it still pretty wide open?
It's wide open, so it's not like filming on the London streets. You got to have permits or whatever, but you can pretty much show up anywhere with a film crew, so long as you're not obstructing, and you're cool.
So you're still in the innocent period of film crews are cool, right? So come on in, film.
Long may it continue.
I wish. I remember on one of the street scenes, we were walking down, and she's walking along, and there was one guy in Culver City, and he was like not happy we were permitted, but he was not happy we were there. And so he just turns his music, cranks it right up through the window. And I was just like, man, you suck. Like, we have a permit for this street with this block. I have to film here. I can't move.
Well, he probably knows it. That's when you have to carry the cash envelope.
Absolutely. He just didn't want us there. And it was like 3 p.m. in the afternoon. It wasn't like an inconvenient time.
Looking for a payoff. I remember that in the old days. It's like somebody carries some cash, pay off somebody's lawnmower. Yeah. Let's see. We have about 5 minutes. Let's see. What other questions can we ask? What are your plans for a next project? Or what do you plan to work on next? Jack?
Well, mine is a feature film that I need to finish really this year. I was hoping to finish it last year, but life gets in the way, and so does COVID. So this year, my aim for this year is to have it finished. Well, it could either go 2 ways. It could become a feature film, or it could become maybe a 3-part mini-series, perhaps. But basically, it's a true story of a guy that I mentioned earlier on, called Jeff, who's got an amazing story. He basically opened the UK's first completely illegal cannabis coffee shop in North Wales, and he ran rings around the establishment. He ended up fighting a court battle, which was tried at one of the UK's top courts with one of the UK's top judges. Tried to make an example of him, and in a unanimous court decision, he was found unanimously not guilty because it was evident that he was helping sick people, and that's the story that I want to tell. So similar themes to the short, but this one's actually a comedy.
All right, cool.
Well, it sounds uplifting.
Yeah. And Shada?
I'm right now working with my writing partner on a series deck, and we're kind of still in the midst of fleshing that out. It's about, in vein of with my love for unscrupulous and maybe unsavory characters, it's about a female journalist who she goes against her morals to get the stories that she wants to get, like to get herself where she wants to be. And then we kind of see her downfall from it, and can she save herself out of that pit? And anyway, I'm like, right now the answer is no, but we'll find out. So I'm still in the midst of writing that. And then more immediately, and this is still very much a fingers crossed, but I was approved right now to go and shadow the director for Casino Royale out in Bulgaria on his next film. So a lot of times women don't get as much opportunity to go into action or thriller work. And I have a keen interest in action. So I really want to go learn for a few weeks, and we'll see what that does. Hopefully it's not shut down. I don't think the production will be shut down, but hopefully like my approvals won't be shut down simply because traveling right now and adding any member to a crew that's extra and doesn't need to be there is usually not great, but we'll see.
Well, just show up in a hazmat. It'll be fine. Hazmat.
It'll be great. Yeah, I'm not worried.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you for being patient as we're trying to figure out our technical difficulties here. And we hope to see you guys sometime in the future.
So good. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
It was lovely to meet you both.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All right, take care, guys.
I'll check out your film right now.
You
in fact.
too.
All
Me
right.
too.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Bye.
All right.